You're listening to the Untitled Car Show in partnership with RightFootDown.com. Visit RightFootDown for your daily automotive fix. If you enjoyed today's program, please tell a friend. It's the best way to support this show. If you want to visit the archives, go to YouTube and search for Untitled Car Show. That'll bring you to the archived episodes. If you want to follow the show, just search for Untitled Car Show on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram. You can always send an email to the show at untitledcarshow@rightfootdown.com. We're so glad you decided to spend the next hour or so with us. Without further ado, let's get into today's program. It's good to be back in the studio recording an episode here in Maryland. It's nice to be around all the familiar equipment. So apologies for being delayed on all these episodes. There was an issue with production going on, so we had a plan, and like all things in the Untitled Car Show, the plan kind of went to hell pretty quick, so that's how that worked. So I apologize for not putting out an episode last week. I really wanted to get one out. Ended up spending most of the last couple days vomiting and other fluids just flying out of the body. I guess the first minute of the show is not a good time to just kind of show all the disgusting bodily fluids that flew out of my body, I guess. I don't know, probably not. I guess that's not what people tune into a car show for. So let me get some stuff kind of up and out of the way, and figure out just going forward what we're gonna do here, and talk about some stuff, and get back to it. So first and foremost, came back from vacation, had a wonderful time on vacation. I kind of talked about it in the last two episodes in brief detail, and that was fun. But just to give you driving around the convertible for the first time, really fun, really enjoyable. Makes me want to get a new one. I'm curious what the fan base thinks about getting a convertible. So I have the Volvo Superleggera project that's going to be competing in the Lemons Rally, and I had a thought of maybe once this season's over, perhaps trading that for a convertible, but I'm not too sure about that. So I have all the items and everything for my drivetrain swap, and I don't really want to give that up. So, but then again, if I find a vehicle that has some potential and would make a nice convertible, it might be more fun. So the biggest reason I kind of want to get into a convertible project is, apologize, still drinking a lot because of the effects on the throat. So part of the reason I want to get a convertible is just my daughter seemed to enjoy being in one so much, having the open sky. It just seemed to be, well, it was the first time she's been faced around forward too, which that's a whole new wonderful thing, is getting to see her face as we're driving around in brief spurts. Because I was not ever a big fan of having the mirror where you could look back to see the baby's face, because I said it was distracting, blah, blah, blah. So trying to be safe parent, 101 stuff, listen to the experts, which how smart can they really be, but whatever. So seeing her being able to enjoy the act of driving, and seeing her very focused and keen on where we're going, like if she's not in the middle, because in the convertible we weren't able to do it, she always has her head kind of leaned over and is trying to see where we're going, which I think is absolutely delightful. But putting down the top, she had an absolute blast with that. So I'm tempted to get a convertible based purely on that, something older, something. So my thought is, I love the Volvo. I love working on it. It's a fun little car to tinker around with, and you don't give a shit if it's broke. Um, so my thought was, can't really keep around. If this was me running the show here, there would already be a convertible for super cheap parked in the driveway. But the unfortunate fact of being a married man is that's not allowed. So, I mean, it's just a pure fact of it. So I need more space, more yardage to start my unholy collection of cars. So, yeah, maybe a couple years down the road, get just a ton of acreage somewhere and start building up a fleet of hoopties. So that would be the ideal way to go about this. But in the meantime, I kind of have the thought of running the Volvo through a year of events and then maybe trading it for something else, possibly from the community. So I don't know if you have a good convertible contender for me, something that would be relatively cheap but relatively safe for a little one to be in. Let me know. Yeah, I'd almost rather have something without a working drivetrain at this point, just because I have all the stuff for a drivetrain swap. But we'll see. So the plan is Lemons Rally, do that, get the car back here, and then after Lemons Rally, we kind of delayed the whole process of doing the engine swap of the Nissan motor into the Volvo because of that. So the thought is come back from the Lemons Rally, start the drivetrain swap, which would be fun. Then, I don't think there's really a reason not to just keep the motor and all that for the Volvo anyway, because it's not like it takes up a ton of space, because it breaks down a lot better than the Porsche drivetrain does. So we might look into keeping that around, possibly for a swap into another car, possibly for, I don't know, I wouldn't mind building a lightweight kit car using that drivetrain, because it's not powerful by any stretch of the imagination, but the diff's okay. I don't. It might be an interesting thing to put into something super small, super lightweight, just to have fun with. But we'll see how that goes. Yeah, so that's kind of where the plan is with that. So kind of maybe build something with that drivetrain, maybe do something with the Volvo, and then swap it for someone else's convertible project. I don't know. There needs to be, and here's a opportunity for someone out there. There needs to be a project, like a car project swap site. So if you think about, you got your missus on your ass, and she wants you to get rid of the stupid project that's been sitting in the yard, not doing anything for years and years or whatever. Or let's just say it's unfortunate because that happens, and it's unfortunate sometimes you get someone who wants to build a car, and then they end up going through some financial trouble of their own, and then they end up having to sell a project halfway through. I think a dedicated site to buying and selling unfinished project cars would do pretty good out there in the ether. And what's sad is this is just coming to my mind, and I'm realizing I'm recording it as I'm thinking of it. So I hope someone steals this idea. If not, maybe this is something I could look into. But like being able to sell a project car or get a project car, what it would really be helpful too for is, let's say the unfortunate thing happens, you retire and you're working on your project car, and you happen to pass away during that, and your kids are less mechanically inclined than you, so they decide that they're going to sell it. It'd be better for them to be able to get a higher chunk of change by selling it to someone looking for that project than to a scrapper on Craigslist, who would probably be the person who buys it. Now, that's not to say they would figure out what they're supposed to do with it and sell it that way, but it is what it is. I don't know, I don't think it's a bad idea. And then maybe you could branch it out to my old idea of having a project car helper, and like you could do like a app where you could do like the Tinder slash grinder of like the car world, where it could be like, I'm looking for help with a car project. I'm not willing to offer up to like 5 beers for help and assistance. I think that would be a fun thing to do, like a app based on proximity for that. I don't know. Maybe. See, the thing is, before, a lot of people be like, oh, that's a great way to attract serial killers. Is it, though? So, we live in a day and age where you have Tinder, Grindr, Uber, Lyft. You have all this, what was it? The sharing economy is what they call it. And these people are being picked up and paying other people for taxi service, basically, or people just meeting each other via proximity online. And yeah, you do hear crazy stories. Don't get me wrong. Like, there's the crazy Uber drivers and there's the crazy Lyft drivers, but there's a money element to that. And I think when you remove the money element and you just make it a pure, I'm a hobbyist looking to engage in my hobby. Now, I think the issue would be you'd have to kind of figure out what your level and skill is and rate yourself on that, because yeah, I could probably help you put some zip ties on something, but I might not be the best person for an engine swap, ironically. That's how I learn, is by doing. So it would be kind of fun to be able to get onto the little app and say, I'm looking to do this. I'm working, and it'd be better if you were able to get out to the garage, get on your little app and put out a beacon like, hey, I'm working on this car now, if anyone's interested in helping. And then local gearheads who are like, I want to get up and I want to do something, but maybe I don't want to rip apart my car because of it, could get on and click it, and then, oh, there's someone working on the street. And maybe, like, for me, it would be great because it's a new neighborhood, want to meet people like mind, have a beer, enjoy, socialize, which is very hard outside of the automotive world. Mr. Regular did a wonderful video about kind of the social isolation of YouTube and, you know, kind of what it's done to him, where you go from knowing a bunch of people to knowing just a select few, and maybe they're not even in your immediate area. So having the ability to socialize with people in a new area by getting into helping them fix their cars would be real fun. And maybe it could even be something where I'm going to have to delete that. So hold on a minute there for everyone listening. This is the way I make notes, and we will just do that so you'll never have to hear that. All right. So if like, let's say you're a housewife, or you're a I don't know, maybe you're a dude who doesn't know anything about cars, and you want your oil change, but you don't want to get the car, go to the local like thrift market or thrift lube, whatever the hell it is, pay them, you know, quote unquote, their $19.99 oil change fee suddenly turns into $115 because, oh, we're using synthetic lubrication. It might be something where you could just simply say, I want an oil change on my Cadillac Escalade, let's say. I'm willing to pay a case of beer for the person. I don't know. It comes to me, every mechanic and every mechanically minded person I know likes beer, so I think that's a good currency for it. But you could say, like, I want to get the oil changed for my Cadillac Escalade. And you could get on, and you could be like, or I want someone to teach me how to do this, and I'm willing to pay them like a 6-pack. And you could put that out into the ether, and then someone could say, hey, I'm willing to do that. And then they can come over, they could help you change your oil, and then you could pay them their case of beer or whatever the agreed upon fee is, or whatever. I guess, like everything, this could turn into a weird, like, sex thing, like where, you know, Craigslist, I use it for finding car parts and weird cars, but there's a whole underground section which is all about like escorts and like sex jobs and fellatio or whatever. I don't know, all that weird, gross human interaction bullshit. Um, but there, I guess there's a space for that, but I don't think that's how it would probably be used. And I don't know. It's two consenting adults who gives a shit. But then that's the same thing with prostitution. So I don't know. I don't know how that would work. I don't know how you would stop people from giving people sexual favors for that sort of thing, because it would be cheaper than going to the damn dealership and getting it done for you. I don't know. Strange. Um, yeah, I don't know. It might be a fun little thing to do. And if you're a shade tree mechanic, it might be a new venture for you doing it that way. But I think it might be a good idea. I have just gone completely off on a tangent there from where I began, and I have no idea where I really began. Where I really began there. Hold on, I gotta take a quick water break. Oh, that's much better. So that's kind of where that's how my random brain works there. So yeah, where was I going with this? Oh, convertible. Oh, so getting the car ready for the 24 or for the this is the most confusing long title on the planet. The 24 hours of Lemon's retreat from Moscow rally. There we go. So getting ready for that. That's coming up in a couple weeks. Super excited for it. As you can tell, I probably mentioned on the last like 8 shows. We've gone down. So we originally had 4 people in the car, and it looks like it's probably gonna be me and one other person. So it's a bit disappointing. I was hoping to keep costs down a little bit that way. So I don't know if you're listening to this and this is something that interests you. Why not shoot me a message? untitledcarshow@gmail.com. Because fuck it, why not at this point? I will be going regardless. I was just hoping to keep costs down a little bit. So if this is something you're interested in and you can get the time off to do it, shoot me an email. I will get you the information. Let me think here. I guess it works best if you're in the DC metropolitan area, or possibly somewhere in between here and Moscow, Pennsylvania. But anyway, at the very least, this can be 2 people going, myself and another person. So that's kind of how that's going to be. Ooh, very gassy all of a sudden. I don't know, recovering from sickness, not pleasant. Where did I go? I went I had that about 3 or 4 months ago of just not being able to put together a week without some sort of medical malpractice, without some sort of medical problem happening. I don't know. We've been good, and what's weird is never really been sick, and this is how my weird brain works. All right, so I know again car show, but we're just going off the rails today. I guess this is technically the weekend episode, so I'm allowed to be off topic. So whatever. So was never a very cleanly person, but kind of on purpose, where I figured you kind of had to be exposed to germs and all that stuff to kind of be able to counteract that. So then married the wife. She is the cleanest person I have ever met, which is wonderful. But I do find myself getting sick more often since living with her. And I think part of that could be because I'm getting older, and that's just what happens. And part of that could be she works as a critical care nurse, so she's probably bringing home all sorts of bugs and contagions and shit that I've never been exposed to before. But I don't know. I feel like maybe if the house was a little less clean, I wouldn't get sick as much. But I don't know. Maybe that's just craziness of me talking. I don't know. It's strange. I don't know. Now, I don't want to go back to in college. I think if you entered, or college, in college, when I was of college age living on my own, there was points in my life where if you entered my room, you would be like, I'm going to get leprosy. And that's not a overstatement. That is one of my roommates' statements. It feels like we're going to get leprosy if we continue to live like we do. So he was just as messy as I was. So that's kind of where that was. Also had a giant tube of meat that we bought from the Sam's Club when they had like their week of like free membership or whatever. So we went there. We just stocked up on all like this is like right after moving in. We stocked up on like all the bullshit like giant jumbo food we could from Sam's Club, which is great if you have it near you. Like a Sam's Club opens or they have the free week of membership, and you need just cheap food on a budget. It is so worth going and doing that. We lived in that house for 3 years. Was it that long? No, it was like 2.5 years, maybe 3 years. So we lived in there for that long, and we bought this rice, like it was like 30 pounds of rice, and we did not get through. And there was points where we were so broke, we were making rice milk. I remember a roommate made once, like, what are you doing? Well, we're trying to get through all this rice, and when we moved out, it was still, I swear to God, half full. And we tried getting through this just giant bag of rice, like at all times possible, and it was just not possible. And we also had a giant tube of meat that we bought and froze. It was like hamburger meat. And I remember I was trying to cut through this damn thing at one point, and I'm like, it doesn't count as a deal if we can't use it, because it just like froze into like, it was like in a tube, like a giant sausage, and it was probably like, I don't know, like 2 feet. Like you just took it and like rested it up in like the back of the freezer with all the other like cheap like college age snacks people had, like just frozen fucking vegetables. You know, we just like containers full of ramen on top of the fridge, and it was just a matter of trying to get to this meat and get through the meat and get through the rice. And I don't care what you say, because we were of the age where we could buy booze legally, so that's where all the money went. So that's kind of how that worked, and it was fun, but I don't know. Again, going off on weird random tangents because that's how the brain is tonight. This is a fever Ike, not fever, post fever Ike. A little bit delirious, a little bit out of it, and I don't know. I'm having fun though. The throat's still kind of shot, which is whatever. But I'd rather get sick now than be sick in 2 weeks. So that's kind of where that's at. The plan is to be back on a regular schedule coming up this week. So hopefully this is going to be our weekend episode. I may record something on the evening this episode comes out. So keep an eye on my Twitter account at Untitled Car Show. I'm not going to promise I'm going to do something, but I'm going to try and do something. So keep an eye out on the Twitter account. There may be something coming up this evening when this comes out for you to participate in. So we'll see how that works out. I'm not going to promise I'm going to do it, but I'm going to try to do it. So hopefully we'll have an episode out this week, midweek, with a guest who may or may not be familiar to some of you. And then this weekend coming up, we're going to have another full weekend episode, and then we're going to be back into the regular production stuff of me once a week doing a guest interview, basically for the next 52 weeks, hopefully. So that's where we're at, and it's so strange to me looking at the upcoming recording schedule, because it wasn't too long ago where it was next to impossible for me to make sure I had a guest a day in advance. That was just absolutely nuts. Like if I knew I had a guest Tuesday and we record on Wednesdays, if you haven't figured this out by now. So if I knew I had a guest on Tuesday, then it would be crazy I had a guest on Wednesday. Like, you know, like I have it scheduled coming up. And then it started getting to the point where I don't even remember which episode started this, but it started where I had a guest recording a week in advance. So that's kind of how it works. So if I record an episode with a guest this week, it airs next week. So that's the typical rotating section of it. So that way it gives me time to edit and work on it. So for a while when I was doing on that schedule, it would be part of that was because I could know I had a guest on Wednesday, and then I could for the episode that comes out on Wednesday evening, and then that allowed me some buffer zone of working with guests and figuring out times and dates, and it still got kind of close where I hadn't booked more than a week out, but sometimes it was by a week and a couple days, or maybe a week in advance of that week. So in theory, for everyone listening, it was 2 weeks in advance. Well, for me doing the recording, it was just a week in advance. And I'm booked through mid-February now, which is amazing. And you got to remember, I haven't booked anyone for myself in the last 3 weeks. So this isn't a matter of I haven't been booking people because I've been on vacation and I don't record on vacation because that interrupts family time, which is very important, especially with the little one. So there's been a couple weeks here where I mean, to be honest, the last episode I recorded was mid-December with a guest. So to be from mid-December to February is kind of crazy. So mid-December, mid-February, so 2 months in advance. And then I'm looking at who I'm going to get later on past February, in March and April. So it's getting kind of nutty. And a lot of the issue is I don't want to start booking out way too far in advance because that gives me no time to react to trends and stuff. But I don't know. I'm kind of curious to hear what everyone thinks about, maybe going to a 2-guest-a-week format. I'm not sure how that's going to work with the misses and our schedules and everything. But we'll see. I mean, I don't know. Maybe we could schedule out something, but going to perhaps here's the issue. So I really enjoy doing the podcast. It's become very, I'm not going to say easy for me to record an episode, but it's become, I've broken through whatever the bracket is in hours of usage from beginner to skilled at this. I'm nowhere near that 10,000 hour limit where you can be considered an expert at it, but it's become comfortable for me, and I don't like to stay in the comfort zone too much. So been talking with some people on doing some other project stuff. I don't know. So what's going to need to happen is I need to kind of move out of this comfort zone again, and I want to do the video production stuff, but I don't know. It seems like when I put stuff up on there, it hits a barrier for me. I don't know if that's the podcast stuff doesn't translate over to the YouTube stuff, or if it's just me not pushing that section the way I should. So I don't know. Well, I guess here's what's going to come down to is when we do the Lemons rally, that'll probably be me doing the most video production work I'm going to do. So I'm going to put out a ton of stuff for the Lemons rally. I'm going to put out a lot of podcast stuff. I'm going to put a lot of video production stuff out with it. And that's what I'm going to really push. And if I don't get, I'm not talking about like, I need 10,000 views. I'm talking about, a couple hundred views for an episode would be absolutely phenomenal for me. And maybe that's a little weird because I am so successful here with the podcast side of things, but I don't know, trying to, everyone who listens to me likes the show in this format, which I get. I'm very much that way. There's a lot of people who I enjoy on their podcasts, or people who I enjoy doing their YouTube stuff where I don't follow them over into their other adventure. And I get it. I would call it fairly successful podcast, but I'm not, a Mike Finnegan or Mike Finnegan or an Adam Carolla or, people in that genre. And kind of a good example of this for me would be I'm going to throw his name out there because to hell with it. Moderator DeAndrea. I think he's an absolutely phenomenal podcaster. He's on a couple of different podcasts out there, automotive stuff, and I enjoy listening to him. But when he pushes something on YouTube or something like that, I don't follow it over like I would if it was, for example, Mike Finnegan has his podcast. I don't follow people from, I don't know, but see, it's weird. So I don't follow Mike or Matt, the moderator, DeAndrea, over to the non-podcast world. But then there's people like Finnegan or people like Adam Carolla, who I do follow them over to their other projects. And I don't know what that is. So, I'm hoping to, as this show kind of grows and progresses, I want to bring you more content. And I kind of go where the fans tell me to go. So, excuse me for that. If that's, Twitter account has spoken. That's very much, that's where people like to hear from me. They like the stuff I put on there. It's still crazy to me, the number of followers on there. So that's where I go and I put out stuff because that's where the people like me to be. The podcast obviously is a big source of that. When it comes to YouTube stuff, I don't know, did I even publish to Twitter a lot of the YouTube stuff? I don't think I did. I don't know. It's a little unnerving for me to be on camera. Maybe it's my own fault here, but I'm going to promise you some Lemons related YouTube stuff, the Lemons Rally stuff. So that'll be fun. Hopefully I can edit that. So I get back that weekend. So hopefully I can edit that, and that's going to kill me. But I'm going to try and edit a lot of that out that weekend and maybe get a video up that weekend and then make it a weekend release for the next couple weeks. I don't know. There is a pull to that, and it's a lot more easy to monetize on YouTube than it is on podcasts. So we'll see how that goes. I don't know. It's interesting. That's kind of where the future plan is with that, and I don't know. So I know I talked on the State of the Show address about this, but I don't want to kind of dwell on it for too long. But basically, what I'm doing is you did the State of the Show address, went on vacation, kind of thought on stuff, came back, and maybe some stuff plan-wise has kind of changed, but the idea is to start pushing out more content every week. And as a process of that, I really want to start pushing, our partner stuff over at Right Foot Down too. Needs to happen a little bit more. There's a lot of great stuff they're putting out there, especially the New York Auto Show coverage. Everyone, if you're listening to my voice, you need to go check out their stuff. Just search on YouTube, search for Right Foot Down. It pops up. It's got the logo. Click on it. Watch the stuff. They got some great stuff you've been putting up from the New York Auto Show. I'm still catching up on it myself from the vacation and from being sick. So I'm looking forward to the next one on my video queue. Is they have an episode called Right Foot Down After Dark, which I think is going to be very interesting. From the sound of it, from the way Will talked about it, apparently it's more of a kind of podcast format. I don't know. We'll see how that works out. So that's where that's at. I don't know. It's going to be... It's going to be a fun year. So I'm pushing a lot of content out this year. I really want to make it... The goal is make this profitable by the end of the year. The hope is to make this, or I guess the goal is to make this cost neutral by the end of the year. The hope is to start profiting from this mid-year, if that makes sense. So you look at the way listeners have been trending, you look at the way, I don't know, you pull up a lot of the podcast stuff, you can find, where advertisers are what advertisers are willing to spend for each listener follow through, I guess, or basically how many listeners you get per episode per month, which is weird to me. But because it's not how many people are listening to your show every month, it's how much listeners does one show get in a month, which is a little weird for a podcast that puts out twice a week, because sometimes you get, there's more people listen to the weekly Wednesday show than listen to the weekend show. So the podcast interview show always tends to do better than the episode you're listening to now. So I don't know, it becomes a little bit weird averaging all that stuff out. But that's just the cost of doing business, I guess. So moving to other platforms, trying to try and do stuff, try and start and merchandise, get stuff out there and available. And I was talking to someone who I don't know if they want me to mention their name, so I won't do it, about doing like some merchandise stuff would be fun. I don't know. I would really like to start with, well, just because the hell is it, why not? If you've listened to me ramble for the last 35 minutes, you're probably really interested in this stuff. So what I'm really interested in start doing is I want to put out some, not bumper stickers, but I always like to put them, I guess they would technically be bumper stickers. I would like to do something like window decals, basically. That's goal number one. See if there's enough demand there for merchandise. I don't know if that's something everyone buys a lot of, so we'll see how that works out, but I can't see charging a ton of money for that. But beyond that, I don't know where to go from there. So if the demand comes in for those things and it's really sought after, then I know there's a big enough community backing me to start maybe trying putting out some other stuff. And I know it's a bit weird for the show, because the show technically is like me asking people, and part of the reason the show is the Untitled Car Show is because every week there's a new guest, and it's more the person being interviewed show. Like Mike Rose said once, he's the guest star each episode when he goes and does these 30 jobs. So that's kind of how I treat the guest coming on here is, it's their place, it's their moment where they kind of get to be their true base car bore personality, and I'm just here to help guide the conversation, if that makes sense. So I find it, a little bit weird to try and, because here's the weird thing. So the show is, me in one way, and then the show is a different guest each week show. So there's a bit of a conflict there as to how you advertise the show, how you push it forward. And part of the way I help, and this is kind of getting into a weird zone again, but screw it, it's a weekend episode. So you have, you're trying to build a brand, and the brand is the show, and then the brand is also myself. So pushing forth these two things is kind of a weird place to be. So, show grows, that's very helpful. That helps grow my presence in the community, and that's kind of how I want to grow in this community. So the car enthusiast world is kind of a small place, right? So everyone kind of knows everyone after a while. So you have to find your little niche and kind of make your way into that. And there's a lot of people out there who are fantastic writers and people who are, gifted journalists and, even great commentators and whatnot. And trying to find a niche in that and grow the brand of the, again, I say that, and it's kind of weird because I can just hear the Team Clearcoat guys in my head going like, #brands. Trying to grow the show as an entity is such a weird thing. So it kind of started off, again, giving you a weird look behind the curtains here. So the original purpose of getting people on the show, like Bob Lutz, like Doug DeMiro, like everyone I've had on the show, way back in the beginning, was more of an effort to kind of glom on to their fame, I guess, and kind of grow by piggybacking the way aboard that. Because if you listen to those early episodes, some of my favorite stuff was the fun interplay between myself and Proc. And when we did interviews, it was more of an effort just to draw people in so that they could hear the interaction between the two of us. And then that would help grow our show as a brand, separate from the people who we were interviewing. And then life being life, Proc basically coming up with a different schedule than what I had, and the inability to really get together to do much, forced a retooling. So what I kind of really discovered was I enjoyed doing the interview segments of it, and yeah, the show was doing great. It was growing very fast when we were getting these high name people on it, but it wasn't sustained. So, like, I think there was weeks between a couple of interviews, and you'd see people come, and then they would go, and then you'd see another big surge somewhere else, and it was frustrating because you were trying to grow this brand, and mind you, back then it was much smaller than it is now. So you're trying to grow and build that little community you had, and you're trying, kindling, and every now and again you get a spark and it doesn't catch fire and whatnot. But when it became more focused on doing interviews with people in the industry, and less about the interaction myself and Proc were having, it became a different entity. So when it became that different entity, we actually started to see the following slowly tick up. So by doing a high quality interview every week, and I say high quality interview, I'm kind of tooting my own horn on that, but what I mean is there's a lot of shows out there. They don't, I don't know, there's some shows out there where it doesn't seem like they know how to interview well. And I'm not saying I'm the best at it. By far, no, I'm not. I could handle a fucking million other classes and a million other skills, and just to teach me how to interview better. Like I would do that in a heartbeat, if I had the time and opportunity to do it. But again, my weird background outside of this, and knowing some stuff, and in my free time looking into how to conduct a better interview, has really helped. And again, I'm not saying I'm the best at it, but it's something where knowing how to talk to people, handle people properly, keep a conversation moving forward. A little bit of improv training helped with that too. So, yes, and not only that, but, and try not to interrupt unless it's absolutely necessary on someone. So a lot of guests, they kind of trail on the thought, and it's you try and help snip the end of a run-on sentence, to help them kind of get on to the next thing. So I don't know, it's an interesting skill, and it's something I absolutely love developing. And if anyone has any recommendations on interview skills, like YouTube videos, websites, stuff like that, I'm more than interested to hear that. But I kind of lost where I was going with this. Oh, so the being able to put out in my thought, a higher quality interview maybe than some other people are putting out. I guess that's the nicest way to put that. And do it consistently, week after week. Last week and I guess the week before were the first kind of non-interview weeks in such a very long time. And I should have had some stuff in the can for y'all just in case. So I'm gonna work on that in the future so we don't end up missing an episode for that. So that's kind of where we're at with that. I don't want what happened last week and the week before to happen again. So we're gonna make an effort in the future to not let that happen. So that's so you all know. So, but back to my point. Putting it out, being consistent, doing that has really grown this show, which I'm so very grateful for. Again, if you haven't seen my post online about this on Opposite Lock, on Twitter, on Instagram, this was, I finished off last year top 100 overall on Podomatic for like 3 or 4 days in a row, and then the first episode or first couple days after in 2017, we were back in the top 100 again, and it just blew my mind. Now, I'm going to have to, of my own accord, because I screwed up not putting stuff out for 2 weeks, it's going to take me a while to scrape my way back into the top 100, which, again, that's my own fault. Not having the stuff in the can, I owe it better to you guys listening to do a more consistent product when it comes to that. But that's kind of, half the fun is the battle and trying to get up and work on it. And, a lot of people get their, entertainment from 0 to 60 times and, or from video games or whatever. I really do enjoy watching the stats, tracking them, trying to figure out where I'm going to be in the overall standings on Podomatic and where this is going to put me on the YouTube settings. And, the way I kind of look at it is YouTube is the ocean. Podomatic is kind of the bay to the ocean. So the automotive section on Podomatic is the river I spawned in. So I spawned in that river. We made it to number 1 there, and we're almost always consistent in there. And, there's a couple of dedicated radio stations on there being hosted by Podomatic. The biggest one is the Behind the Wheel guys from Australia. I'm sure they got a big listening in Australia, but the fact that we're able to compete and outmatch a terrestrial station on Podomatic is phenomenal. Getting out into that big ocean, or into the big bay and making it to top 100 is fantastic. The more we fight, the more we struggle in there, the more we make it to the top 100 on, the more we make it into the top 100 on Podomatic, the better it is for the iTunes automotive charts, because you can kind of see where you're at in Podomatic's charts or where you're going to be in the iTunes automotive charts, but kind of seeing where you're at Podomatic's overall charts. So I don't think the show's ever made it to the top 10 in automotive, but we've come close on iTunes. So, that's where we're competing with the Smoking Tire, CarCast by Adam Carolla. And for something being done by the whole show, I would say, I don't know, I can't really say anymore because I have help from Justin Hughes, I have help from Ryan West, a lot of help from the Right Foot Down guys when it comes to other random stuff. So I'm going to say, for something that is the majority just me working on my own with help from some other people, but still at the end of the day, when it comes down to the show, the vast majority of time it is me, a microphone, and a computer, and just a Skype chat with someone. For that to compete with the Smoking Tire, with Hooniverse, with a lot of these great, I'm going to give them their due. They're highly produced, they're highly engineered, they're very clean, consistent. They got a lot of backing of people and personnel, to make sure they have, you know, the best, you know, chance at success. For this show to compete with those guys, it just blows my mind. So when I see this show hanging around those guys, and, you know, maybe not so much a Smoking Tire, but Hooniverse, a lot of, you know, those other guys, Click and Clack, and like Click and Clack being on the podcast chart and the automotive section is just not fair. But, you know, to be there, to be hanging out with that is just a testament to everyone who's listening. And I thank you, everyone, so much for listening. I don't know. It's interesting. So if you've made it this long into the show, thank you so much for listening. Sorry again for missing the last couple of weeks. I really do apologize for that. Let me go ahead and thank you. Now, I don't know, here's another thing that's been kind of bouncing around my head, and if you've listened this long, you obviously like the bullshit that goes around my head. I'm thinking about scheduling a summer trip to a place with a fan base of this show. So if you like what you hear, and you like my bullshit that flies out of my mouth, and you live in a place, I don't care if because right now the number one download spot still is somehow Wichita, Kansas. Absolutely phenomenal. So if you're from Wichita and you listen and you would like, you know, I'm thinking like just a long weekend somewhere with me, the missus, and the daughter, but doing like a day dedicated to meeting up with people who enjoy the show. So if that's you and you have a place where you'd like me to go, send me an email at untitledcarshow@gmail.com. And if that's too much work, send me a tweet at Untitled Car Show. Send me a Instagram. I think that's also at Untitled Car Show. Go to Facebook. Tell me there. Again, just search for Untitled Car Show. I don't know. I'm still working on doing a late summer concourse style event that we might glom onto someone else's show. So we'll see how that works. But just because time kind of gets away from me sometimes. Still doing the Lemons Rally. If you're interested in that, again, send me an email. Yeah, that's kind of where that all stands. So, everyone, thank you so much for listening. You know, I hope you had a good time listening to me ramble about weird stuff. Not very automotive related today. Kind of apologize about that. More of a second state of the show address, I guess. But this is kind of more how my weird post-fever, kind of still dehydrated, bad throat, Ike brain works. So I hope you all enjoyed this episode. I don't know. So I think that's it. I think we're just gonna call it a night here. Everyone, I just hope you have a good night, a good evening, wherever you are, whatever time it is there. Thank you so much for listening. I really mean that. Be safe out there.